Hey YouTube, it's GV Lone Guy. It's Monday morning, December 26th, a little after 10 o'clock. Are you ready to get back at it? Neither am I, but let's go anyway. Listen, I've got some video I wanted to play and then some commentary on it, all about World War III upcoming. Looks like Obama's bringing us right into World War III. I've talked about this before, but let's take another look here Monday morning.
Of propaganda in Iran, putting 9/11, Al-Qaeda, all of this on them. Now, the United States is going to have to make a choice between allowing them to develop a nuclear weapon or to intervene, and there may be one or two countries that have something to say about that. And those countries themselves are very, very worried at the moment. 11% industrial output might sound good, but this is China, folks. That's down from a year ago, and that's very, very bad for them. They're really starting to get worried about how the economic crisis is finally starting to affect them. They're also worried about the United States' efforts in the South China Sea, and they're worried that their people have recently caught the protest bug, as have the people in Russia, who absolutely don't need anything else to worry about given all of their recent space failures.
All right, anyway, let me go on here. This one here I'm going to have to read to you because it's in Chinese, and I'm going to go ahead and be the interpreter. On November 21st, America, UK, and Canada announced more sanctions against Iran. France also proposed to adopt new sanctions to force Tehran to stop its nuclear project. On November 23rd, a spokesman of the Chinese Communist Party Foreign Ministry said, "Whoa, slow down here," in regular press conference held in Beijing, that China is opposed to unilateral sanctions against Iran. Scholars believe that being isolated, China and Iran need mutual support. Reuters reported on November 23rd, the United States, UK, and Canada have announced new sanctions against Iran in the areas of energy and finance. France proposed unprecedented new sanctions, including freezing the assets of the Central Bank of Iran and suspending the purchase of Iran's oil. Earlier, the International Atomic Energy Agency had issued a report that Iran may be secretly developing nuclear weapons. Yeah, like we didn't know that. On November 23rd, the CCP's foreign ministry expressed opposition to the imposition of unilateral sanctions against Iran. That's China, folks. China Communist Party, CCP. In this regard, Ming, a political professor from City University of New York in America, believes that since the Cold War, the United States and Western society's biggest challenges have been seen as being from China and Iran. They are both isolated by the United States and the West. Therefore, China's policy is foreseeable. Ming says China and Iran are facing strong Western challenges within politics, economy, and culture. So these two countries basically have a kind of coordination on the international stage to support each other. So we can see that China and Iran coordinate a lot, with a lot of cooperation in matters of energy, arms, and so on. Associated Press also reported on November 23rd, since 2006, the United Nations have carried out 4 rounds of sanctions against Iran. But with export of energy, Iran has not been severely affected by these sanctions. AFP said China supports Iran and purchases large quantities of oil from them. Meanwhile, China is Iran's biggest trading partner. Their bilateral trade totals up to $30 billion. Voice of America reported, according to the Chinese customs data this year, 2011, Iran could become China's second largest crude oil supplier. However, Iran disdains the new round of sanctions. Israel and Washington said in the event that other efforts were not effective, the possibility of military action would not be ruled out. It's puzzling to some that Major General Zhang, a professor from the Chinese National Defense University, I apologize for the pronunciation, said China will not hesitate to protect even with a third world war. Anyway, let me read that again. China will not hesitate to protect Iran even with a third world war. Professor Ming said that not hesitating to fight a third world war would be entirely for domestic political needs. To some extent, though, this would completely be ridiculous to encourage. Professor Zhangming pointed out that the United States and Western societies may deal with Iran by a method of Yasmin revolution, similar to what happened in Libya. From the perspective of the Libyan model, NATO could not possibly involve itself in a large-scale military action. In fact, senior European diplomats in Tehran said that the Iranian government was actually very worried about a military strike. Professor Zhiming says China is facing pressure from America. Meanwhile, current domestic pressure is also very considerable. So they're under domestic pressure. In particular, we can see in civil society the challenge to the Chinese government and resistance forces are growing. Russia is another ally of Iran, with similar policy to that of China toward Iran. All right, that was rough. I apologize for my poor translation, but you get the idea. Here's one that's even more significant. This came out about 3 weeks ago.
Here is a sobering bulletin from the EU Times. China joins Russia, orders military to prepare for World War III. A grim Ministry of Defense bulletin issued to Prime Minister Putin and President Medvedev today states that President Hu of China has agreed in principle that the only way to stop the West's aggression led by the United States is through direct and immediate military action, and that the Chinese leader has ordered his naval forces to prepare for war. Let me read that again.
Please.
Direct and immediate military action. Now ask yourself, why are we not hearing about this on mainstream media news?
Well, it's simple. We never hear anything related to the truth on mainstream media news. The only thing we get there is what the big conglomerates want us to hear, and it's basically the Obama media, so they don't want us to know that Obama's taking us to war. Anyway, folks, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, because you're definitely not hearing it on the news, but our government is taking steps that are bound to lead to World War III. Whether that's intentional or just out of sheer stupidity remains to be seen.